Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to another episode of the Draft Dodgers here on Project Prospect with Dom C. I am your friend Dom C. Happy to be here yet again. Less than 10 days. I think it's 9 days actually until the draft. So we're going to do another mock draft here. And I got a special guest, special co-host to bring on a repeat offender, if you will, someone that I've gotten to know over this draft cycle. Really love his takes, really love this guy's ideas and styles, and we mesh very well. So I figured, why not bring him back for another one? From Zero Tech Draft, Mr. Newt Westen. Newt, what's up, brother?
How we doing, man? This is exciting to get on here again.
I know. It's been a long time coming, dude. I got to be honest with you. This cycle from like February until now, I've been so swamped and so busy and like burning the candle at all ends that I haven't even paid my own channel enough attention, enough respect, because I've been all over the place doing a bunch of things, which I don't say with ego. I say that, very humbly, like I'm happy to do it. But I haven't put out my own content as much this cycle as I'd like to. But I'm glad to be here tonight with you, man.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you said like pretty sure we did a combine preview
the
last time I was on, so that February to now is very understandable.
Yeah, it's been crazy, dude. It's been crazy, and now we're in the nitty gritty. Now there's the rumors. You're starting to read between the lines and find out all the smokescreen stuff is kind of settling, and you're trying to figure out what's real and what's not. But we got a nice little exercise here tonight for you guys who are watching this or listening to this in audio version. We have a 2-round mock. What would we do as the GM? Not predictive, more so what would we do? And we're going to kind of pit together my New York Jets in the AFC versus Newt's Packers in the NFC. So I'm going to be picking for all of the AFC teams. Newt's going to be picking for all the NFC teams. We're going to throw some trades in there every so often if we feel a little frisky. But before we get on to this, folks, if you haven't done so, as I said, our great guest, Newt Westen, is the owner, CEO, man behind the scenes of Zero Tech Draft. Go check him out on Twitter at NFL_Draft_Weston. Really, really good draft content year round. The Zero Tech stuff is awesome. I refer to it a bunch myself personally. I just love to get Newt's takes. So go give him a follow. And if you haven't done so, please like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications on Project Prospect with Dom C. Leave some comments on the video. Tell us what you like. Tell us what you don't like. Let's get that friendly discourse going. It really helps the YouTube algorithm. And hopefully we'll get this stuff out to more of the masses. So all the housekeeping aside, Newt, are you ready, man? Are you ready to be GM for 32 teams? And that means the NFC North too. So you got to play nice with the Bears and the Vikings and the Lions and all that stuff.
Oh yeah, don't worry. I've got the best long snappers and kickers pulled up. We're good to go. I've got all those guys set up for the best possible success.
I bet, man. I bet you do. So I'm gonna get this thing going. Let me present my screen here. Oh boy. And we are off. And as you see, I got all teams marked. We're going 2 rounds, and let's get this thing started. So again, I'll be taking the GM role for all of the AFC teams. Newt will be doing this for the NFC teams. This is not predictive. This is what we would do if we were the GMs.
Which we should be. Which honestly,
soon enough.
Just get us on there. You're going to see it by the end of it. We're going to knock it out of the ballpark.
Yeah, Darren Muji, new GM for the New York Jets in Florham Park. Give me a buzz, man. I'm free. I'm available. Like my hit rate is solid, dude. So I'm up for Tennessee, man. And listen, I don't think this is gonna stray too far from the norm. It's pretty locked in that Cam Ward is going to be the real pick for Tennessee. And I don't see any reason why he shouldn't be my choice as well. They are still in I think a multi-year getting into the guy's quarterback. I'm not sure. I'm going to be honest with you. He's not my top rated quarterback. However, he's the guy I'm going to take here for Tennessee. I think the upside, if it all works out well, is really good. I think he has the opportunity to be a very good NFL starter in very quick fashion. I like the work that they've done up front over the past couple of years to protect him. I think they're probably a couple of years away from kind of settling in and building in that defense and getting him a contingency of weapons that will help there. But
yep.
I love the athletic ability. I love the arm strength. I think he plays a little too much hero ball for me at times, but if that can get kind of honed down, I think you got something really good in Cam Ward. So he's going to be my pick here for the Tennessee Titans. And I'm back up.
Makes total sense.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter if it's predictive or what would I do. I think that's the right pick. So
yeah,
Cleveland is an interesting one, and that's me again. So, you look at the board, and I think that there's three, premier, you can call them blue chip, whatever you want to call them, Newt. I think there's three guys that are on a tier alone. All three of the guys are here. And for me, it's Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter, and Ashton Genty. And I think in a vacuum, you can make an argument for each one of those guys to land here with Cleveland. I think that they still need to address the quarterback. And I happen to be more of a Shedeur Sanders fan than most. So I'm really torn on if I want to pull the trigger here on Shedeur and reset that team and get a rookie quarterback contract working so you can be free of Deshaun Watson next year and really, really start to swallow some of that cap hit and rebuild something that has just been a mess over the past couple of years. However, Cleveland does pick, early in round 2. I think there's some opportunities. I don't know if a team that is not ready to win now is looking down the barrel of a multi-year rebuild themselves. I think at this point, as much as I do think they need a quarterback, I think at this point it's hard. I'm hard pressed to pass up blue chip talent. I think they just got to bring in the most talented people that they can. So for me, I'm going to bring in Abdul Carter and I'm going to place him opposite Myles Garrett, and I'm not going to worry about my edge rushers for the next at least 5 years, right? That Abdul Carter is going to be under contract and that Myles Garrett's getting paid. And I know you can make an argument. Like I said, some people will say Travis Hunter, and I wouldn't argue with that either. For me, I just think it's, you secure a position, the positional value at edge, and you give your team a real kind of statement, a statement player in a statement position. Say, hey, listen, we might have a struggling offense. We might not be able to, really drive the ball or possess the ball for long stretches of time. Our quarterback play is going to be shoddy. Our running backs, our wide receivers are pretty bad. But you know what? We got a hell of a defensive line build in here, and at least that's going to be our statement. So Abdul Carter is going to be the pick. And you are up, my friend, with the Giants.
All right. So this is actually one where had you gone Travis Hunter, I might have actually been tempted to take Abdul Carter here. And pretty happy about that, getting that blue chip talent, because I have 4 blue chip grades, but I'm assuming they're pretty close to yours. Carter and Hunter both being 1. I'm not saying that Travis Hunter isn't worth this pick. Not at all. But I think that the Giants have a big need at edge. They need to get a little bit more juice in their pass rush. Obviously, they got Brian Burns. Kayvon Thibodeau is there. He's been okay. But I think that they would just really like to kind of beef that up and help that defense, especially their secondary,
Mm-hmm.
in a little bit of a way. With Travis Hunter being here, I'm obviously tempted to take him. But even if I'm not Joe Shane, I'm still kind of in that mindset where I have a young Malik Neighbors who's expressed already that he doesn't want to be part of a losing team. And I think he wants to be part of the Giants, but he wants to get a winning culture in that building. And obviously with the success you had with him last year, you want to do everything you can to make this young receiver happy because you can see a superstar that's on your roster. And I know there's rapport between Malik and Shedeur, and I know that if Shedeur were to, or any quarterback, I should say, were to go to New York, Shedeur is probably the one that is a little bit more battle tested than others in terms of like, hey, you're under a microscope. So with Shedeur still here, with Carter gone, also, I'm going to actually turn and I'm going to go with Shedeur Sanders here. I don't think it's going to come as too much of a surprise with kind of where that situation is. I know that they have signed, a couple guys, Russ included, to, make that not like a do or die. But I think that also lends itself really well to Shedeur. I think he has to figure out some decision-making things. And with that, I think it's a really good situation for him. So Shedeur Sanders, number 3 to New York Giants.
Yeah, and listen, I love Shedeur Sanders. Like I said, let me rephrase. Let me bring that back. I think Shedeur Sanders gets a lot of undue hate from the general media. I think his skill set, it's not, there's a lot that people don't talk about. Forget about the pinpoint accuracy. They don't talk about how tough he is, how he stands in the face, he stands tall after taking a big shot in the face of pressure and delivers, right? He has done at 2 organizations, but Jackson State and now Colorado, what no other quarterback. The guy, like, in pressure situations, he just plays really good. Yeah, there's the arm strength thing. I think he's got an NFL arm. I don't think he's got an NFL elite arm. There is the dad thing, which is probably the biggest anchor that's hanging on to him. But I don't see the Giants coming out of this. If the board fell like this, I don't see the Giants coming out of this without Shedeur Sanders either. Honestly, I would have made the same pick.
Okay, yeah, and I think that's like it makes sense. If you like kind of blow away all the smoke that's been just sitting in the air for the last however many months now at this point, that's just been like, it feels like shit on Shedeur season over and over.
Yeah, and it leaves me up with the Patriots here. The Patriots need a left tackle really bad. I'm not in love with the left tackle prospects. And I say left tackle prospects because I don't think Membu's one. I don't think Will Campbell's one. I know Will Campbell might get a shot at it, but I've said this the whole time, even before all the arm measurement, drama came in. I thought his play skill set was best suited inside, where he can really use that power profile in a phone booth and really excel at guard. But I think they'd be very happy to have Travis Hunter on the board here. Drake May needs weapons. Yeah. Let Travis Hunter play on the offensive side. Let him play his 15, 20 snaps on defense wherever you want him, whether it's free safety, whether it's slot corner, whatever it is. I think Travis Hunter, again, New England's in a position where they are reestablishing a new mentality with a new regime, and you go and get arguably the best player in the draft. Some people might say that. I'd say he's the second best player, but that's just me. Travis Hunter's going to be the pick, and Drake May's got himself a weapon. And leaves me back up. I'm back up for the next 3 here. Jeez Louise.
Can I try to change that real quick?
Yes, I'm open. The door is open.
As the GM of the Chicago Bears, would like to inquire, can we move up package picks 10 and 41?
10 and 41 to move back for 5.
Back for 5. I've got, like, the value on it's about 1790, 10 and 41, and then 1700 for pick 5. So,
yeah. So here's my thought process. Jacksonville, the guys that I'm looking at for Jacksonville, I don't think I'm missing. I don't think there's anyone here at 5 that I'm going to be deadly upset that I can't get at 10 because there's a contingency of guys that I can go in a bunch of different ways. So I will take your trade. We're going to offer this. We're going to force it through.
There we go. There we go.
Chicago is on the board, Mr. Newt.
Love it. Love it. And Chicago is, even though Newt Westen may be the GM, Ben Johnson is still the coach of the Chicago Bears. And the Chicago Bears have a wild need, and that is going to be their offensive line, yes, but also their running game. They need a guy to run this Ben Johnson offense. You take a look at what the Detroit Lions were able to do. They did that because they had Montgomery, and more importantly, they had Jahmyr Gibbs. So with that, the Chicago Bears are going to take advantage of, in my opinion, a blue chip player that is still on the board in a position that really lets their offense kind of hit that last step. Yes, I still think that they need to address the left tackle for the future, but they did a lot in the offseason for free agency to shore up the middle of their line. They have 2 starting tackles that, when healthy, have shown the ability to be decent. So Chicago Bears are going to take Ashton Genty and be really, really happy that they have the ability to kind of make this move up.
I love it. It's well expected, and Braxton Jones has another year under contract. Like, he's serviceable. The Bears still have multiple picks. They still have 39 if they wanted to, venture the offensive line there. Even if they wanted to get a guy in, later in day 2 or in day 3 to kind of build and develop, to step in and build the pipeline for when Braxton Jones, or when they move on from Braxton Jones. So I don't think it's a desperate need. I think you're right on the money. Fair value, fair pick. Go ahead.
And I think, it makes sense here going and getting ahead of Vegas.
Absolutely.
Vegas has needs other than running back, but running back is obviously still a need for them. And once again, you have that player. It may be tough to say no. So I think it is. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I don't think it's like unfeasible for like this trade to actually unfold in this way.
No, it absolutely makes sense. And I could see why teams want to get ahead of the Raiders, because, that's probably the chalkiest pick right now is Ashton Genty to the Raiders. I'm going to slide, and now it's my pick with the Raiders. And I don't know if I would have taken Ashton Genty, full disclosure. I'm of the belief, and I love Ashton Genty, and like I said, he's one of the few blue chippers that are in there. But I'm also a little bit old school in mentality, and I don't know if positional value at the running back position, where it's 4 years, wash, rinse and repeat, to me doesn't make sense all that much. But what does is really, again, building identity. What does a Pete Carroll team want? They just paid Geno. Yes, you need to get him some weapons, and that's absolutely factual. The good thing is it's a very deep running back class. So if I miss out on Genty here, I'm still going to be able to get a guy that's going to play the line share, the snaps later on in rounds 2 and 3. They could use some more weapons as well, but they got they got really 2 good tight ends. They got Brock Bowers, who's an anomaly, more of a slot than a tight end, and who knows what they're going to get out of Michael Mayer, who was a 2nd-round pick just a couple years ago. I'm going to go on the defensive side, and this is a fit for me that I've talked about for a couple months now. You look at Max Crosby, right? You look at Malcolm Kuntz on the other side. They have Tyree Wilson, who's more of that, early down edge setting run defender, solid run defender, edge rusher. You have Christian Wilkins, who you paid a king's ransom to play inside last year. Why not pair him up with Mason Graham? You have Mason Graham and Christian Wilkins on the inside with Max Crosby and Malcolm Kuntz on the outside. Again, you're setting an identity. You're setting up a team that there's no one that you can double team because you're just really, really gonna leave the other three guys the opportunity to eat. I love this fit, and I think the Raiders have plenty of holes. You can go a bunch of different ways, but why not really, really solidify your front four and really give four guys that can just get at the quarterback and set the tone on defense? So Mason Graham's going to be the pick for the Raiders.
Mason Graham was a blue chip prospect for me. He's my fourth. So at this point, it's been the two quarterbacks and the four blue chips for me. I have no arguments with like any of the way that started. It makes a ton of sense, especially following my board. So 100% love that pick.
Yeah. And it leads me up with my Jets. I think that again, a team that is a void. You can throw a dart at a dartboard and land on a positional group, and it's probably a need for the Jets. Outside of maybe the cornerback room, I don't think this number 7 pick. I think cornerback and quarterback are the only two positions that really don't make sense. And I know a lot of people have linked Mason Graham to the Jets a bunch. I don't necessarily see the fit next to Quinnen Williams, especially in, if they're going to be in a base 4-man front. I don't know. I think they're a little bit too reciprocal of one another, let alone the complementary. So he's off the board anyway, so I don't have to worry about it. But I am going to address the offense. I think that, the defense is going to work itself out. I'm confident in Aaron Glenn and Steve Wilkes really putting together and coaching up the defense. So I don't know if I have to spend capital here on the defensive side. But what I do need is, with Justin Fields at the helm, it's going to be a run first offense. There's a big glaring hole at right tackle. I'm going to go ahead and take the chalky pick because I think it fits. I'm going to take Armand Membu. I love the profile. I love the length. I think that you watch him against the top SEC schools this past season, and he just showed out. You watch him. I watched tons of Missouri tape, and I watched tons of LSU tape, and I came away thinking that Membu's the better prospect. He's not perfect. There's some stuff that needs to really get cleaned up. In terms of like that anchor and stuff like that, but the power profile in the run game, I love the way he moves in space. I think he's going to be perfect for an outside zone scheme that Tanner Engstrom's going to enable. So Armand Membu is going to be my pick here at 7.
I love that. I think that especially when you get a guy that's a right tackle, you keep him at right tackle. I think it helps out. Not that he can't move over. I think that is a little bit more of an overstress point. But it helps, obviously, like already having him there. There's no transition period.
Yeah.
I love that. I think that because I'm a huge AVT fan. I think that Tippmann has kind of developed into like an average to above average center that you're kind of happy with where you got him.
Yep.
And then like everything else is like subtly falling into place.
Yeah, you have a 20-year-old Armand Membu at the right tackle and a 21-year-old Olu Fashanu at left tackle. Your bookends are safe. It's the one thing that the Jets have that through the Joe Douglas dream never got right is that offensive line. And I think you have some building blocks here. And John Simpson, who we traded for in the offseason last year, was arguably our best offensive lineman last year. So if he's the worst guy on your line, like you can flip a coin. Some will say Tippmann, some will say Simpson. I think you're in a lot better shape moving forward for a team that's not going to really press buttons or push the narrative to battle the Bills in the division this year. But I think you got some real good foundation pieces, especially the cornerstones on your offensive line. So,
well, especially at that point, then you'd have 3 first-round picks at offensive line that, assuming Membu hits, that you've hit on.
Yeah.
You hit on Fashanu, you hit on AVT when he's healthy. If you're getting Membu, then it's like that's what you need to do. You just consistently hit in the first round, and that's going to be huge.
Yep.
So I've got the Panthers. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this pick. The Panthers have so many needs still. I think that obviously you have to want to help out Bryce Young. I think that is going to be just giving him a couple more weapons. Jonathan Brooks getting hurt again just kills.
Yeah.
I think they were really excited about what he could do to be a runner there. Now, obviously, you're happy that you have Chuba, but I don't think that you're obviously here. You're not looking at running back, and I think that you kind of want to let that sit and stew. Hopefully, he can come back, but a second ACL is really not promising. But like now, can you just take a little bit of pressure off him? Maybe having your defense play better. After they got rid of Brian Burns, they never really fixed that. They need an edge rusher. I actually have a player ahead of this, but I'm not going to throw him out that early and be super, super spicy. I'm going to simmer down a little bit, but we're going to go with Mike Green right here to get an edge rusher on the board for a team that desperately needs to affect the pass game on the other side of the ball and diminish the team's ability to really have a clean pocket. So Mike Green, you are a Carolina Panther, is a number 8 pick.
I love Mike Green. He's my number 5 player in the class. I know that there's other stuff outside of football that'll probably hurt his draft status. But, man, if you need an edge rusher that can just get at the quarterback, who's really underrated against the run as well, I would take Mike Green all day. So, you're back up with the Saints.
So, Saints, man, this is where I look, and I think I didn't do this on the last mock I did, and I think now I want to. I'm gonna really flex the fact that I love this defensive interior class, and the New Orleans Saints need someone next to Brian Brzee. Brian Brzee is a really good 3-tech who put up some good numbers last year, and I think is promising, especially for you guys that you got towards the end of the first round. We're gonna go ahead. And as much as I would like to maybe go cornerback here, I'm not going to do that. We're going to hopefully hit that a little bit later on. We're going to go with Kenneth Grant here, and we're going to get a 2-gapping defensive interior lineman that is able to play next to Brzee and be a true 3-down presence on that football field.
Yeah, I love that fit. And listen, Brzee hasn't really – he's been okay. He hasn't really lived up to the draft pedigree that he was taken. And with the new regime, like he's already going into year 3. So he might be, he might not be long for this roster. Kenneth Grant there. I mean, Kenneth Grant's much better playing, 2-gapping and all that. But in situations where you got to line them up at 3-tech, you can do that as well if they decide to move on from Brzee after the year.
It doesn't preclude him from that. It also lets Brzee stay on the field and continue to, grow as a player. So I think it's a really great, it's like an offensive tackle that you can kick into guard. Like you're playing in a way that allows everyone around him to be better, but also lets you be flexible.
Yeah. I love it. I haven't seen it. I haven't seen that pairing, and it makes sense. So I really like it. And I'm up with Jacksonville here. What to do? I think I know what I'm going to do. And like I said, if I was picking at 5, I think you have to consider Mason Graham. I know that's pretty chalky.
I've made that pick every time, and I feel happy about it. It's the most I've called it the most boring pick in the draft.
Yeah, that's not going to be an option here. Obviously, with him off the board, I think you can make an argument for a couple other guys, and I know which way I'm going to go. This is not – maybe it's a little bit off the beaten path, but you got to hear me out on this one. And I'm going to take Tyler Warren from Penn State.
You don't have to convince me here. I love that.
Yeah. You have Tyler Warren.
I hear you already.
Yeah. You have Tyler Warren, right? Who what is who's the new coach over there? Why can't I think of his name?
The guy from Tampa Bay.
Yeah, that guy.
I can't remember his name.
I can't think of his name right now either. But you saw what he did with K. Dotton, and K. Dotton has half the talent of Tyler Warren.
K. Dotton's out here catching strays.
Yeah, you have Tyler Warren, killing you with the death by 1,000 paper cuts with those little those little stick routes and the stuff that happens on the horizontal plane, especially versus two deep safeties, you're going to force a safety to come up. And then what does that do? That opens up the outside, right? For BTJ, for De'Ami Brown, for Gabe Davis, those guys who can really just take the top off. That to me is something. Liam Cohen, that's the coach. That to me is something that I think Liam Cohen, who is showed at least in 1 year calling plays as a really, really high level schematic play caller. I think Tyler Warren is going to be just a vital chess piece for that Jacksonville offense, and perfect for Trevor Lawrence, perfect for the wide receivers whose skill set are to really take the top off the defense.
Yep.
So you want to take those two safeties from the two high safeties down. That's what Tyler Warren can bring, and not to mention that he's kind of a dog, dude. He can kind of do a little bit of everything, man. The athletic profile on Warren's awesome. Yeah, he can. You can put him over there and line him up in wildcat and tush push with him if you want. He could just do a lot. I think he's going to open up the offense a whole heck of a lot. This is a great fit for me, Tyler Warren. You are a Jacksonville Jaguar.
And I just want to add on to that too. If you take a look over the start of Trevor Lawrence's career, his favorite target has been Evan Ingram, who's no longer there. I have to imagine that they want to fill that void. So even with their new regime in there, you gotta help your players out in the best way. Lawrence will sling it downfield, and he's got with Davis and DTJ, he's got the weapons to do that. But you got to give him some kind of a safety blanket, and I think Warren does that really well.
Yeah.
This is for me. This is a little bit chalky. I don't think that consensus is going to feel this way. The trenches on the defensive side of the ball have to get addressed for the San Francisco 49ers. I was very abruptly told that on Twitter when I didn't do that. And I'm trying to make amends right now. We're going to go with Nick Scorton here for the San Francisco 49ers. Truthfully, my edge too. I didn't want to be super spicy, like I said, so I saved him back to here. I know some people are still going to say that that's too high. I disagree. I really like Scorton. I think he's got the opportunity. A guy that's going to be, I think, 20 years old on draft night to be a really, really impactful pass rusher and start to help out that San Francisco team and build up that defensive pass rush.
Yeah, it's funny because I did I was on a Twitter space this weekend, and somebody asked me to hop in, and they were doing a 32 team, 32 coach or fan mock draft, and they picked randomly out of hat. I got San Francisco, and I didn't go on the defense side of the ball, and like you, I got my ass chewed out.
They are passionate about that.
These San Francisco 49er fans are adamant that they don't need an offensive lineman. So
no, yeah, they're like, we got guard figured out. Trent Williams is going to play forever. We want defensive line.
Yeah. So I like Scorton too. I like Scorton. I'm curious to see if he comes back down to the weight that he played at Purdue, where I think he was much more. I think he was much more effective.
I agree.
Yeah. So I'm curious to see.
I think that with how he tested at the combine, I think he'd ultimately like to kind of be in that. I think he's got the ability if you just get the right minds on him. I don't think Texas A&M was that. And unfortunately, with the production of all three of those defensive linemen, it kind of showed. So I've got Dallas here. I've always struggled with this pick. And I think that there's been kind of this really weird fall of a player, and it's odd to me, just given how much he was talked about at the start of the season and how much he did. Dallas has one receiver, and good receiver, very good receiver in CeeDee Lamb, but they have one receiver, and they've really struggled to pair him with anyone. We're going to have them pair him with a guy that's an actual dude, Tet McMillan, who's been constantly mocked in the top 5. Like, you're talking October, November, December, And then I think it's just, truthfully, I really think it's just prospect fatigue that you're seeing them start to slide. Obviously, I could be wrong. Maybe there's some things behind the scenes. But if you can get CD, where I know that they really like to play him out of the slot, and I think he's just so dangerous as a bigger slot, and you get Tat outside as your big-bodied target, it's a matchup made in heaven, in my opinion.
Yeah, I love that fit, and I like the fact that you can go inside outside with both of them, right? I mean, CD does
Agreed.
most of his damage from the slot, but there's going to be some situations where you can pair them up twin on the field side, and you can have McMillan in the inside and kind of him use his skill set and that catch radius to work the middle, and have CD take, hopefully, play the mismatch and get a safety and take him over the top. So I love this fit. I love this fit, and I love this pairing as well. There's nothing wrong with it. And leads me up with the Dolphins. So a lot of news in the Dolphins. I heard Jalen Ramsey's probably not long for the team. The team is in shambles. And
I think I saw those exact words, actually.
Yeah, this team is it's really in shambles. I think that as quirky and as fun as he seems, I think Mike McDaniels is short term, not long for this job. I don't think Chris Greer is long for the job at GM. I could see them really struggling this year and just doing a complete overhaul and resetting everything, which stinks because they're just getting into Tua's big contract now. But they pushed all their chips in the middle, and it didn't work. They still haven't won a playoff game, and now the financial ramifications are starting to pile on. Instead of paying Robert Hunt, instead of paying Christian Wilkins, they made Jalen Ramsey the highest paid cornerback and now want to get rid of him. They paid Tyreek Hill, and he's beating his wife or his girlfriend or whoever that is. And they're just making poor decision after poor decision. So you can go a bunch of different ways here. I think they need some help on the interior of the offensive line, but it doesn't seem like a position that they tend to always prioritize early. So I'm going to
just put the ball into his hand and throw it in a second. I mean,
that's it.
And I totally agree with you that they don't prioritize it.
Yeah. And I'm not going to prioritize it either. I'm going to think that if it's an interior guy, I can land a guy I'm comfortable with round 2 or round 3. Yeah. But the defense is in shambles. So although he's not my favorite cornerback, he's not. Will Johnson is my favorite cornerback in this class. I'm not going to take Will Johnson here. I'm looking at the scheme. I'm looking at the holes that they have on defense, whether it be at whether it's opposite of Jalen Ramsey if he's there, whether it be at slot where they're Cater Kohor is just a guy, and he's probably, I think he's in the last year of his deal. And then you look at the safety room, which is void now with Javon Holland leaving for the New York Giants. I'm going to go ahead and take what I think is the best scheme fit for the Dolphins here, and I'm going to take Jahdae Barron off the board. Doesn't matter if he plays the nickel. Doesn't matter if he plays, the free safety or the post safety. I think that the versatility, I think he's got great zone eyes, and they play a lot of zone defense there. He's very, very strong fit in the run, which I think is something that they're going to need. You could have went defensive lineman. It would have made sense too, because I think they need a couple of those. You could have went edge rusher because you still don't know what Jalen Phillips is coming back from that Achilles, and Bradley Chubb's, probably not long for the roster either. So you could have gone a bunch of different ways. For me, Jahdae Barron's a really good scheme fit. Kind of one of these, and you could have went Malachi Starks too, kind of similar situation. Best player available. They're pretty similar. I went with the idea that if you want Jahdae to just, man up and be your nickel corner, if you want to bump him outside at times, you can do that as well. So Jahdae Barron's going to be the pick.
You know what I find funny? We talk about this draft kind of being like a little more of a question mark than a lot of others. Jahdae Barron and Kenneth Grant, both in the last collab mock draft I did, were not picked in the first round. Not like anything of them. It's just like how the board fell. And now they're both top 15 picks. And I think it just speaks to how weird this draft is and how not consensus it is.
Yeah, and especially when we're calling the shots, which is nice.
Right.
And it leads me up with Indianapolis here.
Yep.
And I got to be honest with you. I know it's not the right play, but I'm tempted to take a quarterback. I'm tempted. If Shador's on the board here, I'd be tempted to take Shador Sanders here and say, hey, listen, you and Anthony Richardson are going to fight it out. But I don't think that they have the balls to do it realistically. And I look at the holes on Indianapolis. You can go tight end. I think that they're in love with Tyler Warren. I think he would be the pick if he was here. I'm not going to take Colston Loveland. To me, it's just a little rich for me. I think you can make an argument for an offensive lineman here too. They lost Will Fries.
Yeah.
They have some other holes along that offensive line or some question marks. I mean, Quentin Nelson's getting up there in age as well. I think Bernard Ryman at left tackle is a really, really good find. Braden Smith, they re-signed, so I think their tackles are at play. Again, do I want to take a guard here when they have other holes? I don't think so. But I look along the defense, right? And you got Grover Stewart and you got DeForest Buckner, both solid veterans, but both long in the
veterans.
Veterans. I'm going to bring some juice into the defensive lineman. Here's where I'm going to have Derek Harmon come off the board.
Okay.
Yeah, I
like
love
that.
I love the versatility that he brings. I think he's big enough that you can play him, inside as a one tech at certain situations. I think you can play. He can obviously rotate in a three tech. I think there's certain situations where you can have him on the outside as well. The nonstop motor, the heavy hands that he plays with. He has a knack of getting at the quarterback. For me, I think that this is the play. Although he might not see the lion's share of the snaps year one, I think this is a play for a long play. Something that
I think you've got, in my opinion, the highest upside, the highest ceiling player in the defensive interior group in this year's draft.
Yeah.
And I think he's able to immediately step in and be a rotational piece for sure. So I love that pick.
Yep.
We got Atlanta. This one's so boring, but I love it every time. Atlanta needs an edge rusher.
Before you do that.
Okay.
Before you do that.
You're gonna have Atlanta's got their golden boy sitting there, so let's listen.
Denver would like to come up the board if possible. I'm just gonna pull up and see if I can get you some value here for Denver.
So we got pick 15 and then 20.
Yeah, so that's a difference of about 200 points. So I think if I will throw you 20 and 85 and a third rounder next year. So a 1 and 2 3s. This is very similar to a couple years back when the Jets traded up for AVT. Same value. They moved up to 13 instead of 15.
I like that. I think the draft is thick with who Atlanta would take right now.
Mm-hmm. And they only have 4 or 5
we're
picks.
Gonna do that.
Yeah, they only have 4 or 5 picks. That.
Exactly. Yeah, they've got 4 picks. They have got pick currently 15, 46, 117, and then 244 via the LA Rams.
So the trade is going to be 15 for 20, 85 and round 3 next year. It doesn't really affect this video or this mock draft here. But again,
it evens the value.
Yeah, and you're playing here. Why doesn't it allow me to force this trade? Oh, there it is. It allows Atlanta to pick up an extra third round pick, which is very vital considering they only have a couple picks here. And it puts Denver on the clock. And there is a guy that I want to come up and get. I wanted to get ahead of some of these teams here just in case, right? You look at Denver. and you look at that offense, and they talk, they signed Evan Ingram, and they talked about that, kind of that having that star receiver, or that star player, or that difference maker. I don't know if that's Evan Ingram, if I'm being honest with you. But what it definitely is, and why I wanted to get ahead of Cincinnati, because I think Cincinnati is a really, really sneaky spot for running back. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take Omarion Hampton here.
There we go.
And lock in my guy. I would have thought about Colston Loveland if they hadn't signed Evan Ingram for a long time. But this offense just needs, they need a couple more pieces, right? They need that solid running back. They need that guy who can take some of the pressure and open the field up more for Bo Nix. I love Cortland Sutton. I've been a big Cortland Sutton stan since he came into the league. I think he's a phenomenal number one. I think Evan Ingram is going to be, by default, their number two receiver. And, they definitely need to add some more depth in the receiver room, but they can do that later on. But you're not going to get a guy that, can ultimately really be your bell cow and really help the game in every aspect through the, in pass pro, through the, on the ground, through it, with his receiving chops. I'm going to go ahead and take Omarion Hampton and just get ahead of Cincinnati in case they were trying to get funny.
All of this coming from a guy that doesn't value the running back in the first round.
Yeah, no, I didn't say I didn't value it in the first round. I said I didn't value it in the top 10 or early that high in the first round. But listen, Omarion Hampton to me is a really, really good fit in Denver. And they go back to the well.
I love the fit. I do love it. And I think it makes sense just to do that, where it was. So 100% agree with that.
And now you're up on the Cardinals.
I am up on the Cardinals. This is one where, man, I'm stuck looking at, what are the Cardinals? I think the Cardinals need a lot now. And they still need, a fair amount for the future. I think they played above their weight class last year, and it kind of hurt them a little bit. I'm
between two guys for the Cardinals personally.
Will Johnson is the one that comes to mind immediately.
Yep.
And I'm just trying to see if there's anyone else that moves me from there. I think one is Jalen Walker, but I think the Isaiah Simmons experience soured them to a player like that. And while I like the ability for Walker to kind of come in and really do a lot for that team, I think truthfully they need a number one cornerback. They have guys that are able to be decent. And I think they've drafted really well in the the middle part of the draft for that, but I don't think they have a dude. And we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna do that. We're gonna take Will Johnson for the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah, that's the pick I would have made too. Like I said, I was between two guys. I like Matthew Golden there a lot too. Another weapon, a true number two. I don't know if he's got a number one upside, but with Marvin Harrison there, does he need it? And then you have a wide receiver room with Michael Wilson and Marvin Harrison and Matthew Golden. I think that could be dangerous, but that is a distant number two to Will Johnson. I would have taken Will Johnson here as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And leaves me up here. Man, Bengals fans, don't hate me for this. But I'm the GM, right? And you look at this team. You have no idea what's happened with Trey Hendrickson. You just don't, right? Joseph Asai on the other end. Is he somebody that you want to really go to bat with and kind of lock in as your true pass rush threat there? I know that they have Cam Sample. I know they have Miles Murphy, who really hasn't developed. I need a guy. I need a dude who can go at and get the quarterback. And yeah, I'm gonna go with Donovan Ezeraku here.
There it is.
Yeah,
I love this.
Yeah, I thought about James Pierce because I happen to really, really like James Pierce a lot. But I think Donovan Ezeraku's probably going to be able to, he first off, he's phenomenal pass rusher. I love the balance that he plays with. I love his hand fighting and the way he sets up his edge rushers. He's really, really, strong at the point of contact. It plays a lot stronger, plays a lot bigger than he is at 6'2" and change. And James Pierce, I think, might be the better pure pass rusher. Yeah. But I think Donovan Ezeraku is more of a traditional hand in your dirt, 3-down type of guy than James Pierce is. This is the fit for me. Donovan Ezeraku is the pick. You are up with Seattle Seahawks. You're up for 3 in a row, as a matter of fact.
I was getting ready to phone mine in. See here. You're not going to come up and offer a weird trade again, are you? Because I'm about as confident in this one as I was for the Atlanta one.
I'm not. I'm good right now.
All right. I'll say we're going to very quickly take Will Campbell, not think twice about this. Possibly the best offensive lineman. If not,
I'm shocked he's still on the board. I completely forgot he was still on the board.
I mean, that's to me, you need a guy. And here's the beauty of it. You need a guy to play the interior, period. Mm-hmm. Everything I've heard, they feel really good about Abe Lucas. Yeah. But Abe Lucas's health over the last 2 years has been a question mark.
Yep.
And if you need a guy that can kick out, Will Campbell is a guy that can kick out. Now, maybe you love him, maybe you don't like him as a tackle. I don't care. Whatever. Pull the Zach Martin, pop him in at guard, just let him be an all-pro guard. And then if you need to kick him out to play tackle, rather than putting someone in there that is a really massive step down, it gives you the flexibility to do that. But you're not putting pressure on Abe Lucas and saying, hey, your job's in jeopardy. We've just got a really versatile insurance package named Will Campbell that's going to be hanging out over here at one of the 2 guard spots, maybe left or right guard, and going forward from there. So I like Will Campbell here. If he's still on the board, which, I thought the same thing, Dom, where I was like, man, he's still here. I was getting ready to almost say Kelvin Banks. And I was like, if Campbell's here, I got to go with that instead.
Yeah. I love it. And it leaves you back up with the next 2.
Yeah. So we're going to go Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'm going to go with my highest edge rusher on the board. That's going to be Shamar Stewart. He's going to be someone I think I can get after the. Oh, did you make the pick?
I did not.
I had it in my head, edge rusher, and that's why I was so quick to it. But Jalen Walker's still on the board, and while they need an edge rusher, I think they just need a guy that's able to be like a dude in the middle of the field. And I'm not discounting Jihad Campbell. I think Jihad Campbell's more of a traditional linebacker that can rush, where with Jalen Walker, you're getting a guy that can just do a lot of things really, really well. Mm-hmm. I actually have Jihad Campbell higher on my board too, but I think here with what Tampa Bay needs, it's like they have, the entire picture colored in and then a really faded spot in the middle. So I'm not going to go Shamar Stewart. Actually, I'm going to go Jalen Walker here.
Jalen Walker, I love the fit too. He's gonna do wonder with Todd Bowles over there. Todd Bowles is gonna figure out a way to scheme him up to just wreak havoc. Man, that guy plays like his ass is on fire. I love that guy.
He does, and I love it too. And now I'm back on with Atlanta. This is what I was getting hyped for before Dom sold me on a really good trade. The player's still here, so it worked out both parties. I get where you're coming from with the Cincinnati Bengals with Omari and Hampton, and I don't think it's crazy. So I do like that. But we're gonna go with Mykel Williams here. Atlanta getting a Georgia boy, getting an edge rusher, someone that they have just desperately needed. Like they need to fix that position. Sure, maybe Shamar Stewart, maybe James Pierce Jr. I don't care. Just get an edge rusher in there. I love the connection with the Georgia Bulldogs. I love the floor that Mykel brings you as a really, really good edge run defender, and the ceiling that he brings. So I think he's a safe pick on top of being also kind of an exciting one as well. Kind of that rare combination of high floor, but still a high ceiling.
Yeah. Mykel Williams, I think right now steps into the league as a plus run defender. If he can figure it out and hit that ceiling as a pass rusher, it wouldn't shock me if he turns out to be the best edge that comes out of this class. Now, that's a lot of projection involved in it. And it's going to take a lot of coaching. But I think Ron Morris is a guy that can probably hammer that out and make sure that happens over there. And that leaves me up here. I got to remember, what do I want to do here with Pittsburgh, right? You know that
this is the biggest wild card, I feel like.
Yeah, so I really like Derek Harmon to this team. He can kind of fill that Larry Ogunjobi role that they had. They moved on. I think he's now in Buffalo, Larry Ogunjobi. But he's not here right now. I think, I don't know if there's another real solid 3-4 style edge that I think the value is worth here, because the edge rushers that are on the board here aren't really that. Walter Nolan is more 3 tech. Tyreek Williams a 1 tech, which they don't need. They have Keanu Benton. You could take another. Walter Nolan might fit if you wanted to get behind, get somebody there behind Cam Hayward, but I don't know if he's going to be to me, I think he's much more of a true even front 3 tech, pure 3 tech than he is, kind of playing on that 4-eye and stuff like that. That Pittsburgh wants him to do. I know what I'm going to do here.
Here we go.
Yeah, no. Do I want to do that? So I'm between 2 guys. And this is me. This is my choice. I shouldn't have to worry about anything more than what I want to do. I want a guy.
Sleep tonight. Yeah. What's going to give you the calmest night's sleep, Dom? That's what you go with.
I'm going to tell you exactly what's going to give me the calmest. I'm going to give you one of my favorite prospects in this entire class. Well before this draft cycle kicked off, well before the Senior Bowl, a guy that I think is absolutely not scheme specific, versatile. You want him to play that 4-eye, you can do that. You want him to stand up, he can do that. Give me Darius Alexander out of Toledo.
I thought that's where you were going with it.
Yeah. Like I said, I think Harmon's a great fit, but Darius Alexander is a really close second to that role. You're talking about a guy who has the best hands out of any defensive lineman in the game. He's fast. He can play. He's strong, versatile. Play him up and down the line. I don't care what formation or what scheme you got going on. He can play in base nickel and base. He can play in base. He can play in nickel. He can play in dime sets. Like I said, up and down the defensive line. A real disruptor in the run game. A real nuanced pass rusher. Again, the best hands out of all the defensive linemen. Darius Alexander is a Pittsburgh Steeler. I love the fit. I absolutely adore it. And I'm happy here. So leaves me up with the Chargers. Chargers. What do I want to do here with the Chargers? The question is, Newt, are the Chargers really sold on Quentin Johnson?
I think that's the biggest question here.
Yeah, I don't think they are. So to me, it's between 2 guys here. Do they go chalky and go Colson Loveland, which would make sense? Or do they go big and go home in the wide receiver room? And I think Matthew Golden is going to come off the board here.
Ooh, okay.
Jim
Harbaugh is going to let his guy walk like that?
Yeah, because you think about Matthew Golden, the nuanced route runner. You think about Loud McConkey, the nuanced route runner, right? Now you got inside-outside versatility from both of them. You got the speed that Golden brings at low 4.3s, even though I don't think his play speed shows that, that straight line speed. But, at worst, you have a guy that can play the Z. Even if you want Quentin Johnson on the field as the X and Ladd inside, I think it gives Herbert a different type of receiver. I think it gives Herbert a more reliable contested catch guy, which they hoped Quentin Johnson would be. Then he's not. Matthew Golden to me is a really good fit here, and I'll worry about tight end in round 2.
All right, Packers are up, so I got Packers and Vikings. This is one. So truth be told, I would, and I've done this on almost every mock that I've done. Man, I would have the phone just like wide open. Like, hey man, give me a call. Let's make a deal. Let's try to swing something.
Mm-hmm.
If that doesn't, then I'm really happy with how the board is. I look at, for me, it's two guys. Shamar Stewart is sitting there, and he's the most Packersy of Packersy picks.
Yeah.
Penraz, like a premium position.
Yeah, checks all the boxes in their height, length, and
exactly
and size profile.
Yeah, and it's a guy that if Van Ness develops wonderful, then you have 3 scary pass rushers.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't force your hand with Rashawn Gary when this contract comes due. And I think it just provides a lot of versatility. This is where I really like the range of Shamar Stewart. I think it's not starting here, but I think this is like a super sweet spot. I think like 15 to 25 is an ideal spot. Mm-hmm. And it also just like lets him not have to, step in and be the dude right away. So I was between him and well, I guess I'm not gonna say. I'm gonna leave that. Newt Westen's gonna leave that one as a secret. We're gonna go Shamar Stewart here.
Shamar Stewart. Does the production or lack thereof scare you off?
No, it's the exact same thing with Nick Scorton, where I just think the A&M system sucks at helping their defensive linemen, have any sort of role in pass rush. Mm-hmm. You don't see Nick Scorton go from what he was at Purdue to what he was at A&M without the scheme playing, somewhat of a role. And when you see that across the board with 3 guys, I'm not sold that it wasn't a big limiting factor for all 3 of those guys. So no, I like where he's at. I look to a guy, Odafe Owe, never had a sack in college, gets drafted at the end of the first round and has turned into what is a fairly decent pass rusher now for Baltimore. So definitely see the trajectory there. Now I talked about the Packers. I think Minnesota is begging here for teams to come back. Minnesota is also another team with 4 picks. And they don't pick again until pick 97. So they got 24, 97, 140, and 161. So maybe a little bit more meaty in the middle of day 3, but they are really, really not happy with where they're at.
Yeah. I might be able to make something happen here. Let me just see if I want to do this. If it makes sense. Minnesota is what, 740? Yeah.
Is that what that pick is?
Yeah. So here's my offer to Minnesota. Cleveland wants to come back in.
Okay.
Cleveland will give you 33 and 67 for 24 and 97.
That's the easiest yes in the entire world. I mean, it gives Minnesota once again what is like a discounted second round pick. Like it's a third round pick, but it's really like a discounted second and a discounted first. I love that trade. I think it makes both parties really happy. I know.
Actually, you know what? The value doesn't
okay.
work there. I'm not giving you enough. I'm gonna throw in.
Hold on. I've got for those. I've got
Yeah.
740 and then 835.
Do you? 285.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you're right. It is 740 and yep.
I was like, I mean, if you want to give me more, you can, but it's already a little bit. I'm not going to say an overpay because if you're coming up, and I have a feeling that Cleveland's coming up for a quarterback,
Maybe.
and maybe, it probably changes things a little bit. But I think Minnesota is very happy to be a suitor here, just given what situation they've put themselves in. So the Minnesota Vikings would gladly discount their pick and pick up that 67th pick. In my opinion, I'm not speaking for all Vikings fans. In fact, most Vikings fans probably hate what I have to say, but I love that for me as the GM.
So Cleveland's now on the clock. Cleveland is going to move up. Kenny Pickett's not the answer. He's going to be, Joe Flacco's not the answer. Could they really spend capital to move back up in the first round to take a quarterback? I think it's feasible, especially if you don't expect Deshaun Watson to see the field this year, or you don't want him to see the field this year, and risk injury and risk more money. So to me, this is a no-brainer. I'm going to move up and I'm going to take a quarterback. The question is, which quarterback? And I'm going to give you my thought process on this. My next highest rated quarterback is Jalen Milroe. Okay. I'm not going to take Jalen Milroe though, because the reason why I'm doing this is because I think that I'm going to need somebody to play now. I think I'm going to need somebody to come in and step in and play, and I don't know if that's Jalen Milroe.
Why do you think you have to have someone to play now?
Because I'm not confident in Pickett or Flacco being able to hold the dice. I need I need to sell. I need to feel comfortable that I'm going to have somebody that can at least compete for the spot, and I think they'll beat out Kenny Pickett, and Joe Flacco is just a guy. You know what I mean?
Okay.
To me, I don't think Kenny Pickett's probably. There's no guarantee that he's on the roster. I don't know what the financial ramifications are.
I feel like he's QB3 in that situation.
In that situation, absolutely. And you have Joe Flacco, who might be able to hold the fort down in the beginning for a younger guy. I'm gonna take Tyler Shuck here.
Okay, let's go.
I'm gonna take Tyler Shuck. I think that there's a lot of smoke, a lot of noise about Tyler Shuck coming off the board in round one. To me, if there's any quarterback that can come in this rookie class, not named Cam Ward, and produce, I'm confident in Tyler Shuck. Why? He's experienced. Yes, he's a little bit older, but the arm talent is legit. I think he can come in that offense and be able to, kind of cut his teeth with maybe, 4 or 5 games in the season after Joe Flacco, goes 18 for 36 for 185 yards like Joe Flacco will do. But give me Tyler Shuck. He's got enough mobility. He's got enough off-platform stuff that I think can really work. I think he's got a talented arm. I don't think it's elite, but I think it's talented. I like the idea of having an older guy, experienced, kind of grizzled, come in here and really compete for the starting job. I also don't think that I think you're doing everything that you want. You're getting a guy that can come in and play. NFL teams are very high on Tyler Shuck. I think you're getting a guy that can come in and play, and you're resetting that quarterback. You're resetting that salary so that you can move on from all these has-beens and hopefully find something that is, sustainable for long-term while you rebuild. Is Tyler Shuck going to be a 10-year pro in this league? Probably not. but I think he can come
He's
in.
Gonna be in a wheelchair by the time that comes around.
But I think he can come in. I think he can come in, and of all the quarterbacks that are on the board, I think he's the one that can push small hands, Kenny Pickett, and the corpse of Joe Flacco to the bench, and really give this coaching staff who's on the hot seat, give him a chance to do something. So
how old is Kenny Pickett? I actually have to know this really quick.
I think he's 26.
Is Kenny Pickett, is he older than Shuck? He's 26. June 6, 1998.
Yeah.
Tyler Shuck. So June 6, 1998. Oh, Shuck's a year younger, damn it. I knew Pickett was a little older, so yeah. I knew that wasn't playing in my favor. But
yeah, I think everyone thinks that Jackson Dart's going to be the number 3 quarterback. I'm not necessarily sold on Jackson Dart being a first rounder. I think he's a guy that you want to sit and kind of nurture for 2 years or so and let him develop before you hand over the reins. There's no quarterback here that I'm more comfortable handing over the reins if I need to than Tyler Shuck, which is why he's my pick.
I love it. You're back up with the Texans then.
Yeah, this one fell pretty good because I think my 2 biggest needs here are probably a slot receiver to take over for Tank Dell because you don't know if he's going to be back, right? Or an offensive lineman because they're a mess on the offensive line. Yeah. So it really depends on which way I want to go here. I love Emeka Egbuka.
Oh, I do too.
I absolutely love Emeka Egbuka. He's my wide receiver 2, and it's not much, but it's not by much. He's wide receiver 2. He's closer to wide receiver 1 than he is to 3. I love the idea of pairing him back up with CJ Stroud. I think that would be really good. However, I think it would be I think it would be like sacrilege to not spend some capital here on the offensive line.
Sacrilegious. Look at you go.
Yeah, especially when there's a guy like Gray Zabel on the board where I think he can give you a 4-position versatility. So that's where I'm going to go. I'm going to go Gray Zabel. If I can find him. Here he is.
I love that.
Yeah. And the Rams are up.
Come on down, man. All right. So Los Angeles, just like another weird team in my opinion. I think they've got things like figured out along their lines. Like the trenches feel good. They hit on Verse, they hit on Fisk last year. They did a lot kind of before that to get their offensive line right. Obviously, Matthew Stafford is a ticking clock. I don't think that warrants, unless they feel like there's a dude here, them taking a quarterback. To me, I'm not of that mindset. One position I would like to maybe address, you have Cam Curl, you have Quentin Lake. Quentin Lake was like a 6th-round pick, and he's played out of his mind beyond that, which is good for him. Like, wonderful job, Quentin Lake. I applaud you for grinding. But his rookie contract's going to come up. Cam Curl didn't play like the greatest last year. And there's a guy named Malachi Starks that's still sitting on the board. I can't ignore that. Cornerback is another position of need. They're kind of getting thin there. I think they could piece together some things, and I think there's good value here. But man, I can't ignore Malachi Starks still sitting on the board. So Los Angeles Rams, we're gonna go Malachi Starks and get who is like probably a top 15 player for me at this spot. So I think the value is phenomenal on him.
Yeah, and the thing about Starks is you can play him anywhere, right? You can play him at nickel. You can play him at free safety. You can play him at the star. You can play him outside if you need to in certain ways. I wouldn't want him to lock in one-on-one on the boundary all the time, but you could play him up in the box as a big nickel or as a dime linebacker too. I think he fits the run really well. So I mean, you can't go wrong. To me, the value is probably too high to pass on Starks. Yeah. Oh man, leaves me up. Yeah, I know what I'm going to do. I would have taken Starks here, but
That makes sense. Just to pair with Kyle Hamilton.
Yeah, and
Are you gonna?
I'm going to pivot to Nick Emenwari. I'm going to make it nice and
Okay.
simple. Emenwari gives you you can pair him up with Hamilton, or if you wanted to play Hamilton in the nickel and put him back in the nickel, then you have another versatile too high safety that you have him with Emenwari. I love the athletic profile. I love the way he can flip his hips and run. I think he has a little bit of work to do in terms of fitting the run, especially from deep, from distance. I think he overshoots sometimes, or overshoots his mark. He's not the best tackler in the world, but he's a phenomenal athlete. And you pair him up, like I said, with Hamilton. Darius Washington, the other safety there. You can figure out how to get all three of them on the field.
Yeah.
Let Hamilton kind of roam and do a little bit of everything. It's a really nice fit here. That's where I'm going to go. Is Emenwari.
I like that.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna overthink this one too much. Detroit. So I guess I will overthink it a little bit. Detroit. I think about edge right away. You want to get someone opposite Aiden Hutchinson. Although in 5 games he put up 7.5 sacks. I think he's proven that, like, he doesn't need a guy opposite him. He's still just able to be an absolute dog when he's out there. Broken leg, obviously, a really unfortunate situation, but it's something that, like, I'm not worried. It's not a soft tissue injury. It's not a tendon. Like, it's a broken bone. He's going to be back from. He's going to be fine. I look at the one spot that they have kind of a hole now is offensive guard. And the player that's on the board that I think has a really good chance to fill that and, like, then project as a really good option for you along the line is Kelvin Banks. I like Tyler Booker as a guard. I think he'd be wonderful in a Dan Campbell system as, like, I'm going to punch you in the face and get after it. But I can't ignore the versatility that Kelvin Banks brings you to play both inside and outside. I think it gives you the opportunity, especially since you have Panay Sewell playing on the right side.
Mm-hmm.
Once you move on and you have that left tackle open, you have a guy that you can slide out there. Or once again, I've mentioned Zach Martin already once today. Just make it the second time. If Banks is your guy and you love him inside at guard and he's an all-pro, hell, leave him there. But it gives you versatility. It doesn't lock one thing in. He's the highest player on my board still. We're going to go Kelvin Banks here.
Excuse me. I love the fit. I love the player. And there's still so much value here on the board as I'm scrolling through and looking at the guys that we haven't touched on yet. But you are up, my friend, with Washington.
Oh, yeah. Shoot. Washington, let's just grab – I'm not going to mince words again. We're going to go with James Pierce Jr. here. This is one where they dumped off Chase Young. They dumped off Montez Sweat. And they did what was right by them at the time. They're back in win-down mode. They need to replenish that. They've got Colleen Farrell starting at defensive end, which I'm not trying to have Colleen Farrell catch strays, but it's just a fact of the matter. Like, he signed on a really low second contract because he did not live up to the first-round hype that he had. He's not an impact player. Let's get an impact player in here. James Pierce Jr. has that opportunity. The fact that he's still on the board is insane to me. So, James Pierce Jr., you are a Washington Commander.
Yeah. Again, crazy good value for Pierce.
Yeah.
And I think if he's on the board at this area, I think some of these teams at the top of the second might come calling.
Yeah, I agree.
But I'm up with Buffalo. Man, I just realized something. I knew who I was taking for Buffalo the whole time. I knew I was in lockstep and who I wanted, but I'm going to pivot. No, I can't do that.
Kyle McCord, right?
Yeah, Kyle McCord. No, I'm going to stick to my guns, man. I'm going to take a guy that I think is deserving of a first-round pick. I love his game. I love the versatility that he offers. He's got size. He's got length. He plays with nastiness. It's a desperate position of need. And I'm going to take Trey Amos out of Ole Miss and just line him up. press man skilled. They ran a lot more man last year, but he still is adept. He plays with those own eyes. He can click and close. He's physical. The outside corner opposite of my God, why can't I think of his name? The guy that they signed. Anyhow,
I'm blanking as well.
Yeah, I'm blanking.
You got to replace Rasul.
You have to replace Rasul Douglas, who's still unsigned, if I'm not mistaken.
I think there's a lot of talk about bringing him back, but he's just not the guy he was.
Yeah. Trey Amos for me is an ideal fit. I think Buffalo fans would love him. I think the defensive staff would love him. To me, this is really as close to a no-brainer if he's on the board. And guys like Kenneth Grant are off the board.
Yeah.
I think that this is the closest lock there is for me. And I'm up with the Chiefs.
Yep.
The chalky pick here is to go with Connerly or Simmons, right?
I agree. Yeah.
But I'm not going to go chalky.
Love it.
I am going to go on the offensive line, though.
Okay.
I'm going to take Donovan Jackson. Donovan Jackson can slide in and play left guard. And if by chance, all that money you spent on that hack of a left tackle, you just brought in doesn't work. I think he showed that he can slide outside and play there. Losing Joe Thuney is something it's something that they're going to have to kind of adjust to.
He's arguably the best left guard in football right now.
Yeah.
I mean, and possibly the best right guard is Trey Smith.
I think Donovan Jackson can come in and slide in for Thuney.
Yep.
And you're not going to skip a beat. And in a pinch, if you need him to bounce outside to play left tackle, I think he can do it. He showed he could do it last year. So I wanted to get Donovan Jackson off the board because I think he's worthy of a first-round pick. I considered him, once Hampton was off the board, I considered him as high as Cincinnati at 17.
No, I like that. Yeah, I think Donovan Jackson, answered every single call that you could ask for from him.
Yep.
Obviously, interior offensive line it's not a sexy position. It's not a premium position, but it's one that can make or break. Obviously, the Chiefs have done really well with bringing in an interior offensive lineman. So maybe there's a little pixie dust that they sprinkle on him, and it just gives him that extra kick. I got Philadelphia. I'm going to stick to actually something that I did the other day. I really like this as I thought about it more and more. CJ Gardner-Johnson leaving in that trade opened up a void in their secondary. They have Sidney Brown, who's fought through injuries during his first 2 years. I think they still like Sidney Brown, but I don't think they're ready to just say, hey, go for it, Sidney Brown. And I think that especially in that situation, you're in this kind of rebirth where they want to just completely transform their secondary. And you hit last year on both DeJean and
Quinyon
why am I
Mitchell.
blanking on
Quinyon Mitchell.
Thank you so much, Quinyon Mitchell. You hit on both of those guys. You have pieces around them that have been really helpful. Let's bring in a guy that can play like a true free safety role, compete for the position, push. Maybe Sidney Brown will end up starting alongside him. But we're going to bring in Xavier Watson. We're going to get a third safety off the board in this first round. I think this is the class to do it. I really like all three of those guys, Imamori included. I think Xavier Watson is a completely different type of player. He's a true center fielder and one that can do a great job of filling that role that CJ Gardner-Johnson left open. So Xavier Watts, you were officially a first-round pick in this year's mock draft Dodgers draft.
A little spicy. I love it. I haven't seen Watts drafted this high probably since the fall. And I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that judgmentally. I'm just saying it's good to see him get the love that he deserves, man.
Yeah, I like the guy a lot, and definitely like dishing out as I can.
Yeah, and tons of good guys here still on the board as we start round 2, Newt. So we'll pick it up a little bit, and you
Yep.
can lead it off for the Vikings.
I can't ignore the fact that there is a guy named Walter Nolan that's still on the board that is he's just so good in my opinion. He's worth a top 20 pick. It's pick 33. I hate picking this for the Minnesota Vikings, especially with how much I really like this defensive interior class.
Yeah.
He's my DT2, but he's here. They need a defensive interior to kind of add to that rotation, and I think he's got a chance to be a dude. So we're gonna go Walter Nolan here, and really not hesitate too much about it. I know the secondary is still like something they want to address. Brought back Byron Murphy Jr., did some things to kind of like piece it together. I can't ignore Walter Nolan being here.
No, and you shouldn't. He probably shouldn't still be on the board, but alas, here we are. You're up with the Giants.
I am up with the Giants. We took our quarterback of the future. With that, we figured out a lot of things in there. Man, this is where I hate it because the second round, you want to move a little quicker, and then you're like, oh, but I gotta check this, but I gotta check this, but I gotta check this. You know what? We're not gonna check this. New York Giants need to fill in their interior offensive line a little bit, and this is another meat left on the bone. There's this guy sitting here, and I'm not gonna ignore that. Tyler Booker, I've mentioned his name, I think, twice already. I think that the guys that went before him, Donovan Jackson and Will Campbell, and Kelvin Banks, that kind of to fill that interior offensive line were really solid for that. But you have Shedeur Sanders. Don't put him in the same situation you put him in Colorado. Give him good players to kind of help keep him upright. So we're going to go with Tyler Booker here. My interior offensive lineman 2, I think. So really like the value of him at this pick 34.
Yeah, no, you're not going to go wrong, and I don't think any Giant fan is going to question that. You put Booker at right guard and Illuminor at right tackle. Andrew Thomas, if you can figure out how to stay healthy at left tackle. John Michael Schmitz at center. You got something. Yep. Schmitz is really underperformed. I think he's got to turn it around, or else he might not be long for this team either. But you're not going to take a center this high. You're going to take a guy who's a difference maker and a tone setter in Tyler Booker. I love it. I'm up for Tennessee. Cam Ward was my pick, number 1 overall. I'm going to go get Cam Ward some more weapons. And that weapon is going to be Colston Loveland.
Okay.
Tight end from Michigan. Chigakongwu, nice player, nothing special. Yes, you could have made an argument for a receiver here as well.
I was saying, is Ibuka in the conversation? I know you like Ibuka. I mean,
I love Ibuka. I do love Ibuka. Ibuka's in the conversation. I think Burden would be in the conversation, but you're kind of killing 2 birds with 1 stone here, right? With Loveland, because I think he can give you the receiving chops that those guys can do, and he can do some different things as well. The big slot. I think he's a really, really effective blocker in space. I don't really like him in a phone booth one-on-one versus a Myles Garrett, head up. That's not where he's going to, really shine. But the route running nuance, the big play ability that Colson Loveland has, now that hopefully gets healthy from that shoulder injury, gets a little stronger. I think that this is a really, really good value pick here for Tennessee.
Nice. You got Jacksonville. Never mind. I was getting ready to pick from. I was getting excited, but no, you got Jacksonville. Dang it!
I got 3 in a row here: Jacksonville, Raiders, and New England. Jacksonville, huh? Oh man, you know what I'm going to do for him? I know what I'm going to do for Jacksonville. This is going to be where Josh Simmons comes off the board. Josh Simmons, coming off a patella tendon tear, which is a lot different than an ACL. He looked like he was getting back in shape. He was doing some drills at the pro day. I think Josh Simmons can give you 4 spot versatility. That he can play right tackle. He did it at San Diego State. That he can play left tackle. He did it at Ohio State. I think his movement skills can play guard as well. And the guy that they brought in from Tampa is not going to preclude you from taking any interior lineman. I don't know how sold they are on Anton Harrison, also, who has kind of declined after 2 years in the league at right tackle. So I think there's some opportunity to really line up your best 5 available and just let it run. Again, this is a pick where I think the value is too good to pass up. As long as he passes the injury, he
medicals.
clears everything with the medicals and gets a green light from the doctors. I think you take Josh Simmons and you figure out where to put him on the offensive line, and maybe he's one of your bookend tackles of the future before after he starts for a year or two playing inside at guard.
I love that.
And they started out with Josh Simmons and who would I pick before him? Oh, Tyler Warren. So offense for Jacksonville and Liam Cohen. Not too shabby.
Yeah, makes sense.
I'm up with the Raiders here. I'm going to take a guy that I think is. I'm going to take a guy that I think is a total Raiders pick here. And I guess I like injured guys here, but give me Savon Revel.
Okay. When you said that, it made sense.
Yeah, give me Savon Revel. Again, ACLs are a lot more easy to gauge, how quickly somebody can come back. But between him and Morrison, I think Savon Revel is more of an all-around player. I think he's not very scheme specific. I think Morrison, if you want just a true, man cover corner, you might go Morrison. But Pete Carroll, I'm assuming, is going to put some more zone concepts in. And Savon Revel just knows, he plays with such good football IQ. He moves so well pre-injury. He moves so well. He's a true boundary guy. You can put him out there on an island and let him be. Savon Revel is going to be the pick here for the Raiders. And now I'm up with the Patriots. I'm going to make this quick too because the board fell very, very good for them because I'm taking my OT1 in Josh Connerly here. He's the guy.
OT1. You said OT1.
OT1. You heard it.
Look at that.
I have Campbell graded out as an interior. Yep. Campbell's my 15th player overall on the board. Connerly's my 19th and Membo's my 21st.
Okay.
But I think Connerly is a true left tackle, which is exactly what the Patriots need. Right?
Yep.
I think that I think he matches movements and mirrors very well. He's got a lot of Charles Cross in his game. I think he can come in and be a plus pass protector right now. He moves very well for a big guy. Definitely needs to get a little stronger. Not going to deny that. I think the anchor is average or less than average at best right now. He's not a people mover. But if you're asking me for what skill set that I want my left tackle to protect my prize franchise quarterback, give me somebody that can come in and pass protect, really, really well right off the cuff. And that's going to be Josh Connerly. My OT1, as I said.
I love it. So Bears, we got the running back. I think that was the biggest need for them as you start to look and move forward. I probably honestly would have taken Josh Connerly had he been on the board. So definitely a little bit of a snake there. You love to see it. With this, they still need an edge. And I think that if you were to get a guy like Princely Umanmielen in here, this would be about like, I think he could go earlier than this, but this is kind of like the meat of the range for him. You talk about that early second round. I like the spot for him. I think he offers the ability to be very, very disruptive. I think he sets a really good edge and run. But he has the athletic tools to get after the quarterback and with some better coaching, because he's, like I said, he's athletic enough. He's just got to fire off the line better, in my opinion, and develop a true pass rush plan. That brings us to New Orleans Saints. My best player is on the board as a cornerback currently. New Orleans Saints, after trading away Marshawn Lattimore last year, we don't. Number one, let's as a NFL community, let's mourn the Mike Evans Marshawn Lattimore boxing match that was twice a year. But in a way of revitalizing that with an extremely physical cornerback, one that I think is the perfect person to take the place of that. We're going to go with Azariah Thomas here to the New Orleans Saints. Continue to bolster. Did you make the pick?
Nope.
I'm thinking I like that. So this is the second time I've done this.
It's all good.
Derek Carr. I get into my spiel. I'm like, Derek Carr, he doesn't have an arm anymore, man. They cut it off. And I'm all set to take AZ. But they don't have a quarterback, and I do not, for the life of me, like Spencer Rattler. And I love that they got Kenneth Grant. And I'm not going to back away from that because I think they still could have I would have taken this guy here. Oh, we're not going to go with AZ. We're going to go with Jackson Dart because he's on the board still, and they need someone to throw the ball. And he's still going to stay down south, and he's going to sling the ball around there. I like this because it gives him Derek Carr as a veteran to lean on. It gives him Spencer Rattler as a person that's probably going to start before him and someone to kind of fill that space, and it takes the pressure off of him. I don't think Jackson Dart is, anything close to like a final product. I think he's got upside in that department, but you've got to address it at some time. Unless they love Spencer Rattler, which maybe they do. I don't. But I can't ignore that. We're going to have to wait for the Mike Evans boxing match to continue a little bit later on.
I love it. So, man, I don't know what to do here at Jacksonville. New defensive coordinator. You can probably tell me a little bit more about him. Anthony Campanelli came from Green Bay, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yes.
I'm going to assume, correct me if I'm wrong, coming from Hafley's defense, aggressive mindset.
Yep. Man, want to get after it. Blitz heavy,
man cover corners on the outside, right? Yeah. Yep. Give me Benjamin Morrison all day long. Hope that he's healthy. I could have went Azariah Thomas as well here. But again, I think if you're looking for one specific skill set, again, if the medicals clear out, this is phenomenal value for Benjamin Morrison because he's a top 20.
Oh, yeah.
Pick. He's a top 20 pick if he's healthy. You look at that Tyson Campbell on one side, Jerrion Jones on the other. I know they just paid Jordan Lewis big time money, but he's a slot. I'm going to give, I'm going to put Benjamin Morrison, opposite and let him beat out either Tyson or Jerrion Jones, or let him compete with Tyson or Jerrion Jones and just build some depth in that room there.
I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah. I'm on the board with the Jets here. And here's where I'm going to have Emeka Egbuka come off.
Okay.
It's a position.
That's so good. That's such a good pick.
Yeah, it's a position.
That's why you didn't make the pick earlier. You were thinking for yourself.
No, not at all. But it's a position in need. I think that they brought in a lot of nice guys that play, that are bigger guys, in Josh Reynolds, in Tyler Johnson, all bigger kind of boundary type receivers. They just convinced Alan Lazard to take a pay cut, an $8 million pay cut. And again, another big body receiver. They need somebody that can operate out of the slot. You don't know what you have in Malachi Corley. And if Malachi Corley comes out and balls out, and it was just the fact that the coaching staff didn't like him, well, then you got Emeka Egbuka, who's got inside-outside versatility.
Exactly.
Garrett Wilson, who's got inside-outside versatility. Both of them have relationships, in that Ohio State connection with Justin Fields. You just need to add talent to the wide receiver room, and that's exactly what Emeka Egbuka does.
I like that. So we're gonna go here.
Ding, 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 ding.
Okay.
The Colts want to come up.
Okay. The Colts want to leapfrog the Dallas Cowboys.
The Colts want to come up. That's right.
Okay. I feel like based on where the Colts went in the first round, I know what they want to come up for.
You do you?
Okay. So
I
very,
have
very small movement here.
Yeah. Happy to throw you a 4th round pick to move up 2 spots.
What number is it?
45. So it's
So 43.
450.
43, 45, and then what's the 4th round pick number?
117.
117. That I believe makes, if I, at least as a 49er fan, I'm ecstatic. Let's go ahead and let's pull that, because I think where the Niners are looking right now, it's fairly thick. That's a no-brainer in my opinion. So
Yeah.
45 and 117 from the Colts for 43 from the Niners.
Correct. We're going to force that through. And the Colts are on the clock, and they're going to take a guy who they easily could have taken at 14 when they took Derek Harmon, and that's Jihad Campbell, to lock up the middle of their defense. They start Derek Harmon, Jihad Campbell in rounds 1 or 2. They're really solidifying and fortifying some holes on the defensive side of the ball. Still haven't gotten Anthony Richardson some weapons, but they still have pick 80 to do that, and then some late day 3 stuff to go about it. But again, for me, this is the meat and potatoes. The value of some of these players still on the board is just too good to pass up. I don't know if Dallas, I wasn't sure if Dallas would have been looking linebacker. I know that the kid from Texas that they got hurt last year.
Yep.
It's a position of need. I wanted to get ahead of them, and the Colts are willing to overpay to make sure that they can lock in a guy that is number 7 on my board. Jihad Campbell's another 7 player on my board. He shouldn't be here at this point.
No, that's great for him. So now I go, and I've got a handful in a row. Geez. So Dallas got their wide receiver that they need. This is where I think that Dallas starts to look at the fact that they really could have used Jihad Campbell here. And so I do agree with that. I really like that. From there, we're going to go with a different player. And I don't think that they'd be necessarily upset about this, because he's not the next highest on my board, but you're getting a phenomenal player, in my opinion. Edge rusher Braden Swinson. Someone that has the ability to come in and kind of take over for that. I think that there's, and this is one where, I said for San Francisco, I think it's thick with defensive line, and I think that's where San Francisco wants to go. I don't think they're hurt even if Braden Swinson was the next guy up. I think there's guys after that. So, maybe San Fran is looking to go edge. I didn't have them even thinking about that. I think that here Dallas does want to do that.
Yeah. So
we're going to go Braden Swinson here for Dallas. We're going to go with the pick that we originally wanted, Alfred Collins out of Texas. And if Alfred Collins was gone, this is such a deep defensive interior class. And if they were dead set on interior.
Oh, I took the wrong guy. All right.
Oh, would you?
That's
all good. It's all good.
We'll
know it's Alfred Collins.
Alfred Collins, yeah.
We'll know that's Alfred Collins.
Yeah, my fault.
That's all good. It's all good. So we get here. We've got Mykel Williams already taken for Atlanta. Need a center. Center's early right now. Maybe if Clint was here, he'd be pounding the table
for Jerry
Wilson. No doubt. He'd be like, I think he's number 35 on his board I saw. So he'd be like, yeah, this is great value. I have no doubt in my mind he'd be saying that. I think here, if I'm looking at this, I'm looking 2 things. Number one, I'm looking at that next defensive interior lineman up just to continue. Like, that has been probably the biggest thing, is just pass rush. and they get Mykel Williams. I don't think it's done yet. I think that if there was a safety, you know what? I'm going to go with the safety, actually. I've got Andrew Makuba up next. Might be a little early for him, but I think that, it's starting to become kind of an opening for you. You got the guy that you wanted with your pass rusher. Now shore up the secondary there. They've had a lot of turnover. I think bringing in a guy like Andrew Makuba, who had a hell of a year and is a pretty versatile safety, makes a lot of sense for them. So Atlanta's going to go safety here, 46. We're going to go Arizona.
On the clock. They took Will Johnson round 1.
Yep, and this is kind of an easy one. Looking defensive interior, obviously linebacker is going to be another big one. As kind of talking through it, you've got Darius Robinson, who are you playing him inside? Are you playing him outside? Maybe a little bit of a question mark. I think one thing that can kind of like complement him and let them like shore him up a little bit is going to be a player that I really, really like. I don't know if you've heard of him. His name is Josiah Stewart. He just led the nation last year in pressure percent and win rate. He had over a 40% win rate last year. This guy gets after the quarterback. He is small. That's going to be the biggest knock against him. But, man, they talk about, God, who's the guy that went to Denver?
Nick Benito.
Thank you so much, Benito. They talk about Benito being shot out of a cannon. Josiah Stewart is that, and I think a little bit more, in my opinion. Yeah. I really, really like Josiah Stewart. I think he's phenomenal. Really compact player, but someone that is just a wrecker on the outside. So Cardinals are going to get Josiah Stewart here, and I think they're going to be really happy with that. Once again, continuing to build that defense that they need to.
Yeah. Miami, I'm up for 2 here. Miami's on the clock, and we took Jahdae Barron in round 1. I think I have to stay on the defensive side of the ball. Let me just look at the interiors here. Yeah, Tate Rowledge is a nice player, but I think I probably will go on the defensive line here. Talik Williams, they need a presence up front. They need a beast, and Tyreek Williams is exactly that, right? You're not going to get much against, you're not going to get much pressure from him. I think his pass rush win rate was under 8% for the majority of the season, and then it was up at 18% during the college playoffs. But that's not what you're bringing him on for. You're bringing him on to set the tone, 2-gap, stuff, take on blockers, stuff the run, and let those linebackers roam free. Great value here for Tyreek Williams. Again, a position of need because the Dolphins have so many of them. But you started out with Jahdae Barron and Tyreek Williams. I think you're in good shape.
That's really good. You're eating good.
You sure are. You sure are eating good. And Bengals are on the clock here. Bengals are on the clock. I know what I'm going to do. I'm tempted to go Luther Burden. I mean, you put him in the slot there between Higgins and Jamar Chase. I think that's you're cooking with gas. I don't know how you feel about Andre Chevis, but to me, he's just a guy.
I think he's a guy. Yeah,
I'm tempted to go Luther Burden. I think that might make some sense.
That piece of that, I think it'd be a little spicy too.
Yeah, but I'm not. I'm going to go Quinshon Judkins. I told you that I think they're going to. I told you that I think they're going to add a running back. And I think he complements Chase Brown really well. Kind of that thunder and lightning thing. I think Quinshon Judkins is, short, compact, plays with great contact balance. Mm-hmm. I think you can get kind of those grimy yards on the inside zone that they run a lot. and let Chase Brown kind of roam on the outside zone or in space a little bit more. Give you a little two-headed monster. Plus, Quinshon Judkins in his pass pro is just filthy, just absolutely filthy. To me, I'll keep the Ohio kid home in Cincinnati, and start there with Ezeraku and Quinshon Judkins. I know it's not the start that a lot of Bengals fans have seen before, but man, oh man, I think they did pretty well for themselves.
I like that.
Yeah.
So Seattle up on the board next. They're going to get one of my favorite players in this year's draft. I think this is a huge position in need for them after the offseason moves that they made. They have JSN, and he's their slot receiver, but they are kind of devoid now that they've traded away DK, and Tyler Lockett has finally had to face really the father time himself. So we're going to go with Jaden Higgins here. A wonderful compliment, in my opinion, to JSN. Just a true big-bodied X that can do wonders for Sam Darnold and provide a change of pace from what JSN has pleasantly brought this team over the second half of last season.
Yeah, no, I mean, great fit, great value. Denver's up. Denver traded up to get Amarion Hampton. And with Luther Burden on the board, I'm not going to even hesitate much more. We talked about having another weapon there when you have Ingram. And I don't think Luther Burden, although some think he's going to be slot dominant, I don't think he has to be. I think he's got enough chops. He plays really strong, even though he's only 5'11". He's 200 and some odd pounds. I think the play strength is good enough to hold up outside. The short area quickness is ridiculous. And
oh my God, it's insane.
It's just another, bevy of riches on the offensive side of the ball here to support Bo Nix. So you start Omarion Hampton and Luther Burden, you're cooking with gas, brother, in Denver.
No, I love that. I think that's going to be something that you want to help a young quarterback out. And I think adding Burden is going to be exactly the way that you can go about doing that. So Seattle, in kind of their way, in a very beautiful way, is back up. This is one where I think Will Campbell really, really helps them a lot in, how they're trying to approach things and what they're trying to do. This is, however, another one where I think their defensive interior is realistically that void. Or offensive interior, I'm sorry, is that void where they really need to hammer down on it. I think between center and guard, they definitely have holes. And I think a guy that can come in and, have an opportunity at both of them is going to be Marcus Bowe. Not my next up interior offensive lineman, but one that I think provides the opportunity to help that offensive interior. I don't know why I keep saying defensive. Help that offensive interior in a way that is extremely complimentary of the guys around him. We talked about Will Campbell, what he can do to help out Abe Lucas. Marcus Bowe has the opportunity as well, where he can slide into any of those three interior spots. And once again, he is a tackle convert. So if you don't really like the arm length from Will Campbell, you got Bowe that can kind of slide there as well. So we're going to go that for Seattle. Tampa Bay then comes up next. I got a slew of them here. Tampa Bay comes up next. They needed an edge. There is a really, really wonderful edge still on the board. There is a couple good interiors left on the board. I think this broke really well for them. It's one where, however you want to attack it, I think you're not going to miss. They're going to go with Landon Jackson here. And I think they're going to be pretty happy with that because Landon Jackson sitting on the board at 53 is, something where it's a lot of meat that he brings to the table. I think he had an excellent combine and showed why he was so productive with just the freaky traits he brings.
I love it.
And then my Packers, who now I am so incredibly excited that and I didn't do this. So this is gonna sound super shady now after I did the New Orleans Saints thing, but my Packers are now gonna actually go with Azariah Thomas because he's still on the board. He's my next up cornerback. I know you took Benjamin Morrison. I would have taken Benjamin Morrison if he was here. Both of them are pretty close to me. I have Azariah up next. I think that he's going to fit really well. I think he makes it a little bit easier to deal with the Jair Alexander situation, whatever that may be. I know that a lot of people think that, you have a decent cornerback room with what you have right now, plus or minus Jair. I like AZ in there. I think he's going to be a great player, kind of moving forward.
Yeah, no, AZ is a top 20 player in my class. I know I took Benjamin Morrison higher. Azariah Thomas, I have graded higher. I just think, like I said, if he's back from the injury, if the injury, if that back thing is not, an issue in 2024, I'm wondering if my rankings might have looked a little different and had Benjamin Morris up there, which is why I took him over AZ. But I love Thomas. I love his pressability. I love him playing opposite Jair or replacing Jair if they move on from him.
Yeah.
Because he could be a name that come draft day is kind of moved on from. If I'm not mistaken, you can correct me if I'm wrong on that.
No, you're not wrong. It's definitely one where like that opportunity exists.
Yeah. I'm up here with the Chargers, and I went Matt Golden last time, and I told you I was going to come back and take a tight end, and I'm going to. Mason Taylor's still on the board. He's my tight end 3. I think there's a lot of these guys. There's a lot of these guys that are good. I think Mason Taylor is the one that I feel a little bit more comfortable kind of in that, that Y inline tight end role more so than Arroyo, more so than Fannin, more so than Helm. I don't think he's a pristine blocker. I think he does a lot of his blocking better as an H-back or in movement, kicking out or something like that. But man, is he smooth. And man, can he really, is he smart enough to find that soft spot in the zone? It's not Colston Loveland, but it's not that far off. And now you got Matthew Golden and Mason Taylor there for the Chargers. You're in good shape. And I'm up here for Buffalo. To me, they just signed Greg Rousseau to a big money contract. I still think that they need a big fatty one tech to pop it inside next to Ed Oliver. They signed Joey Bosa, but that's only a 1-year deal. I'm wondering if, and AJ Epinesa is also on a 1-year deal. So, although I think one tech would probably see the field more now next to Ed Oliver, I think the better play, considering they have 2 picks, coming up, one at 56, one at 62, is that they can use one of these to pipeline a defensive end. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to take JJ Tumalau from Ohio State. Okay. I think he's everything that they hoped AJ Epinesa would be. And I think that he can probably even develop better than and end up better. He's a plus run defender right now. I think he's an effort pass rusher. I think he needs a little bit more tools, but with all those weapons that they have along that defense, I think he'll be given an opportunity to get a lot of one-on-ones, and he's going to be the pick.
I like that.
Yep. You're up with the Panthers.
Panthers went Mike Green, got just phenomenal edge rusher to come in there and be a presence. Now they come back. I think with what they have, I really like how the board broke for them to get a guy that is, in my opinion, a really, really good, I think, running back here because of what we talked about before. But once again, a guy that's able to complement what they have and be good for Bryce Young, and that's going to be Jalen Noel. slot wide receiver.
You
Iowa
just snaked
State.
me right
Oh,
from
did
the
I?
guy. Right, I was going
Oh
to take it
man, I
for
love
Houston.
it. I love it. No, I
Uh,
think that it once again it lets you do what you want to with why am I blanking on their first round pick last year? Xavier
Xavier Leggett.
Leggett, yeah, let's like Leggett's your big guy. He's going to be your X. Jalen Noel is such a compliment to that. I think it lets them, have a transition from Adam Thielen as like a, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to be that go-to guy. So I like Jalen Noel. I like just continuing to help out Bryce Young.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that leaves me up. That hurts. That one hurt me a little bit. I thought Jalen Noel would be a great replacement for Tank Dell. They did bring in Christian Kirk. I did forget about that. So at least the slot is taken care of. They do need somebody opposite Nico Collins. I am not an Alec Ayomaner guy. And Jack Besh, I like a whole lot, but I think he's going to be more of a slot. So I'm probably going to hold off on the wide receiver here. And listen, I know this is probably not super realistic, but again, this is what I would do, right? We took Gray Zabel, and I told you Gray Zabel has 4 position flexibility, maybe 5. I think he can even play some center if you need him to. But I'm going to double dip on the offensive line. I'm going to take Ariante Arcery off the board. He could play either tackle. Ooh. He could play either tackle spot, right? I'm not sold on Cam Robinson as a left tackle. I'm definitely not sold as Blake Fisher as a right tackle. And that's who you have right now, unless you want to move Titus Howard back over to right tackle where he failed, which is why he's playing left guard right now. Let's not make this too muddy. Let's put a 340-pound, really fleet of foot mover in at one of the tackle spots. I don't care left or right. You put Gray Zabel at one of the guard spots or even at center. And I think you've really shored up an offensive line that was a big problem last year for Houston Texans. So that's where I'm going. Ariante Arcery.
Here's a question for you.
Shoot.
Would the Baltimore Ravens, and maybe this is not them, maybe it's a conversation for another team, would the Baltimore Ravens be interested in trading back with my Green Bay Packers, pick 87, and this is where you can absolutely say no, Jair Alexander?
Ooh. So they moved back from 59 to what's Alexander's contract first? Let's see if that works. Let's play this one out here. Let me pull it up here. Over the cap. Let's look at the cap space here.
I think they have 11 million. And I think they do make it with a little bit of money. Obviously, that Packers are going to have to eat some of that. And maybe it won't work. Maybe I'm wrong.
Jair is 24 million cap number, right? Now, how much of that, if they trade him, that's what, 17 million in debt for them. I would take on a base salary of 16 million.
Okay.
I don't think it would work.
No, I think you're right. I think it'd have to be a restructure.
Yeah.
If anything, the Packers would be fine. They'd have enough cap space. But that's 16 because I think Baltimore's only got 7 or 11.
Yeah. Yeah, I would have considered it because I was looking at the cornerback room here to replace Brendan Josephs on the outside a little bit, maybe. But I think I'm just going to stick and pick. And this is going to be a little bit outlandish for some, I think.
I love it.
I don't think it. I don't think it is, and I want you to hear me out on it. I'm going to take Dylan Sampson off the board. King Henry is going to be 32 years old, and he's phenomenal, right? At some point he's going to start slowing down. Those wheels are going to start coming off, and you take Dylan Sampson here, who has that speed profile that King Henry doesn't have. He's got to take the top off of the defense type speed, a real second and third gear. But what I like about him is that the style, the way that he runs, low profile runner, low to the ground, very, very good contact balance. I think he's, kind of typecasted as a speedster, but I think he's got 3 down chops in him. He might not be ready to handle 20, 30 carries right now, but he doesn't have to. In 2 years, when he's 23 years old and King Henry's on his way out, I think you hand the reign over. And that's exactly how Baltimore loves to draft. Baltimore doesn't draft for needs immediately. They draft for what will be a need in a year or two.
Yeah.
So
that's solid.
Yeah.
Detroit's up. This to me is an easier one. Kelvin Banks filled that offensive line. They still need an edge player. I have loved this when he was up there, maybe a little bit more as a first round hype, but I think the value here in my board is really, really good. We're going to go with Jack Sawyer here, edge out of Ohio State. I mentioned that Hutch is able to do what he does, with the situation that they're in. But you take Jack Sawyer here, you get a really good run setter, or a run edge setter, as well as a guy that is just, he's a Dan Campbell guy. He is hard nosed. He's going to give it everything he possibly has. Love that portion about him. So we're going to go with that here. Jack Sawyer. We've got Washington up next. Washington, I've mentioned already that they got Marshawn Lattimore. They got James Pierce in the first round, but they still need, in my opinion, that cornerback right here. I like where Darian Porter is still on my board. I think he's a really good value here. I think that they could use a wide receiver, and I think that's in play. I think that they could use a true running back, and that's there. But Darian Porter's too good to pass up in a really big position of need for them. I think they've missed a couple of times, and I think Porter wouldn't necessarily be asked to start right away, but would be, with his athletic background and how he's grown in the position, already really solid.
Yeah. Porter's so good too on special teams.
Yeah.
I think that goes so far underrated. For Darian Porter, I mean, I think he's got 6 blocked kicks in his career. Blocked punts, something like that. But I'm up with Buffalo. Trey Amos and JT Tuimoloau filled 2 roles here, right off the cuff. Again, I'm going to pass on the big fatty one tech because I think I can get one later on. I think that, day one or at least round 1 or round 2 isn't always the best spot for those guys. I think you can get value down the board. But what you can't get is game-changing speed all the way down the board at times, right? We all saw that Buffalo re-sign their own. They always do. They gave 4 or 5. Christian Benford, the linebacker, Khalil Shakir. They all got extensions. They're the right tackle. They all got extensions this year. So they're Greg Rousseau. They're keeping their guys home. The one guy who didn't, James Cook.
Mm-hmm.
Give me Trevion Henderson here.
There we go.
Yeah, I mean, perfect. Fit, perfect compliment. If they decide to move on from James Cook, let him hit free agency, take a 3rd or 4th round comp pick in 2027 for him. no brainer. Get your pipeline guy in place. I know they spent 4th round capital on Ray Davis last year, but he's more of a bruiser and inside runner. Travion Henderson's just different with the ball in his hands, but he's got a special gear. So, Kansas City, I'm up. Let me see one thing here. I think I know where I'm going to go.
Donovan Jackson first.
Yeah. I took Donovan Jackson in the first round, which I love. I want to see what their depth here looks like. Yeah. Give me Maxwell Harrison. I don't care if you play him inside or outside. But now you have good press man, good man coverage between Trent McDuffie and Maxwell Harrison. I don't think that Kristen Fulton, the free agent that they brought in, is really anything to write home about. More so a depth piece. I think Harrison could push him for a role right now. But I like Harrison a lot as a slot guy. If you're going to keep McDuffie on the outside, the value again is too good. I almost went with one of my guys here, and I really, really contemplated taking Elijah Roberts. I think that that run defense, that skill set would fit so well inside outside versatility of Kansas City, but the value of Maxwell Harrison is too good to pass up.
So I've got the last pick correct.
You do.
I initially wanted to go Anthony Belton here to kind of, I think they've done a good job of graduating their linemen. You saw that with Cam Jurgens this year and what they were able to do. I'm not going to do that because I think that they are like smash the gas, win now. And with them losing a little bit on their defensive line, I think that they could use a guy that can take that 4-eye spot and really do some damage with it. It's a guy that I like a lot. So you're kind of ending with one of your guys. I'm going to end with one of mine. Jordan Birch, probably like that 3-tech, 5-tech, 4-eye out of Oregon. He's going to be classified as an edge. I think that he's a guy that is phenomenal player. Did a hell of a job this year making the most of his opportunity to come back, and one that is, a player that really will wind up finding success in that odd front.
Yeah. Birch is criminally underrated. I think he's a phenomenal player. I think he's a really, really good player. 2 interesting picks. I'm not saying they're bad, but Watson, Birch going 1 and 2 to Philly. Names that you haven't seen in a while. There's been a bunch of them, like, Darius Alexander going top 21.
Love that.
I love it. Tyler Shuck being the 3rd quarterback off the board. Crazy stuff. Crazy things happen, but good things and crazy things happen when we're GMs here, Newt.
This is true. I once again, changing the NFL for the better.
That's right, man. That's right. Well, listen, I wanted to thank you for coming on again last minute. Sorry about the rescheduling, but life happens. You know how that goes, dude, as a dad. Things just happen that take precedence. So I'm really, really grateful and appreciative that you were able to adjust and slide in from yesterday to today with me. So why don't you tell everybody where they can find you, brother?
So once again, you can find me. I run zerotechdraft.com. That is where, starting next week, I'm going to be putting out my final big board. I'm going to put out my final predictive mock of the year. I've got scouting results from the Combine and Pro Day for any testable numbers that anyone can have access to. And I've been trying to be a little bit more active on there in putting out articles, scouting reports, those sorts of things. Also, you can follow me on NFL Draft _Westen on the app formerly known as Twitter. That's going to be where I've been doing a lot of my team-specific mocks, my final position rankings, and then just sharing my thoughts in general. Interact with Dom Fairmont on there, get to see his takes. Love to see every one of them. I'm on Mrs. Our Relevant podcast every Thursday, 9 p.m. The last episode you're going to see of this draft cycle, you can catch out this Thursday, April 17th, 9 p.m. Eastern time. Me and my co-host Owen at Weekly Huddle, as well as the guru of everything draft professor Jim Wickens at NFL Draft Fanatic are going to be talking about prop bets. And then finally, something that I wanted to talk about, especially since I get this opportunity to do with Dom, had the wonderful opportunity to write for Cheesehead TV Draft Guide.
Yes.
Right there. You can find Dom in here as well, writing up tight ends, which he did a phenomenal job on. I had the opportunity to be a writer for defensive interior. If you are looking for a draft guide and you like what we have to say, consider checking that one out. It is a Packer draft guide. I'm not going to obviously be preaching to a wide audience here, probably with the Draft Dodgers, but one that both of us shared, our scouting insights on, and one that I'm really proud of. I got the opportunity to. Dom, I believe this was like your first year doing that too. With that, right?
Yeah, my first opportunity to do it, and I will say, not being a Packers fan, the draft guide is in depth. Like I know it's geared towards the Packers, but the insight and the scouting that is done throughout all positions. I mean, they ranked fucking 20 kickers, for God's sakes. You know
insane.
you know that they're insane, and they're crazy about their the draft and their scouting. So I think it's a really good avenue if you want to gather some information, whether you like the Packers. It's not just about the Packers. Like you get some really good in the weeds detail on 20 to 25 guys at every single position. So absolutely go check them out. The Patreon, Cheeseheads TV, where you can purchase your copy of the Cheeseheads Draft Guide, and read what Newt wrote about the interior linemen, read what I wrote about the tight ends, and then you guys can tell us how much better my writing is than his. Well, listen, dude, it's been a pleasure. It's been an honor. We've been on for a while. I didn't even think it was this long. Conversation went good. So I'm happy to have you back, dude. And I'll be glad to have you back again after, so we can talk about some winners and losers after next week's draft, dude.
Hell yeah. I love that.
Yeah. Again, folks, if you haven't, make sure you go check out Zero Tech Draft. If you haven't done so yet, like and subscribe to the channel. Helps me out, helps Newt out. And until the next time, we are the Draft Dodgers, and we'll see you later.